You're listening to Generation AI.
From Live Person.
Hello, Generation AI listeners. I'm your host, Joe Bradley, and I am totally psyched to bring Ranjeeta Bhattacharya onto the podcast today. Ranjeeta is a senior data scientist in the AI Hub wing of the world's largest custodian bank, BNY Mellon. She has over 15 years of experience across roles including software development, solution designing, technical analyst, delivery manager, product manager, project manager, and more. And so I'm very excited to hear about how she ended up in her current role and what's got her excited about the future of AI and automation. Today, we're going to discuss everything from career paths for people interested in AI and data science, which is a particular topic of interest to me, and all the way to specific applications of AI in the financial sector, which, of course, is also inherently really interesting. So let's get started. Welcome to Generation AI, Ranjeeta.
Hi, thanks for having me, Joe. Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you here. Um, why don't we start from the beginning? I know you, like me, took a nonlinear path into data science. How did you get interested in data science and AI? And how did that start figuring into your career? Just like tell me the story of how you got here a little bit.
Yeah. So I did my undergrad in computer science and engineering, and I just started working for a very big information technology firm. So in the initial years, I was a software developer. Then eventually, as my career progressed, I moved into, different kind of roles. Like I I performed the role of a solution designer. I was a project manager. I was into delivery management and so on. So I performed a wide variety of role. Uh, One project I specifically remember during that period, like I was working for a data migration project. So essentially, as part of that, I had to, move data from extremely opaque, archaic mainframe systems to
Mm,
a modern contemporary platform. And I was kind of, appointed as the lead for that project. If I remember correctly, that was the first time I actually started playing around with data, because as a software developer, you're kind of given specific requirements, right? Okay, from here I'm going to pick the data, this is how the flow is going to be, and this is how my output is going to look like. But for a data migration projects, for the very first time, I was introduced to concept like linkage, all
mm.
totally disparate systems. They are all in different formats. You don't know how to pull data from that. You don't know. It was a nightmare. It was
Yeah.
totally a nightmare situation for me. But I ended up learning a lot of things. And I think indirectly, I was picking up a lot of skills at that time through the migration project. And finally, after working in the IT industry for almost 12 years, I decided to become a student.
Wow.
And, I went back to school.
Wow.
Exactly.
How did you do that?
So
Where did you go? What kind of program was it?
yeah, so I started, so at that point of time I used to go through a lot of articles which will normally have this very colorful charts and bar graphs, showing comparisons
Sure.
between certain data points. So it always attracted me, and especially, because I performed so many different kind of roles in the
Mm,
IT industry. I think I really liked digging into data and digging into the intricacies in particular. So I think I was more of an analyst than a software developer, although I started my career as a software developer, but eventually, I moved on to the role of an analyst.
I see.
And then, I just so I was bored of my job, and there were, certain other reasons because of which I kind of planned for my master's degree. I was working in India at that point of time, so
Mm.
I applied here to a couple of universities as an international student, and that's how I joined Rutgers University, New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
I enrolled, yeah. So I enrolled in a full-time master's program, master's in data science for 2 years, and I picked up a lot of skills. I was just overjoyed to go get back to school. Like many people told me that, "Are you sure you want to go back to school
Mm.
after being a professional? Are you
Yeah,
sure you want to go back to school?" I said that yes, I'm sure I want to go back to school.
that's cool.
And It was great. I mean, the experience was great. It was better than I imagined. And, I picked up so many skills. I did lots of projects. And
Hmm.
finally, I graduated in the COVID year. And
Oh wow! So
that's
in
how
2020 or
in
2021?
2020,
Okay, okay,
2020,
okay.
peak, during the peak COVID time,
Perfect
2020
time to
May,
be in. Perfect time to be in school,
perfect time
right?
to
Yeah.
graduate. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And my journey as a, full-time data science professional started.
Mm.
So, yeah.
That's so fascinating. It's interesting to me. I want to hear a little bit more about what your first job was too, if that's all right. But before we do, it's so interesting to me. Like I'm like tracking this all and like mapping it to my own past as well. And I feel like you and I kind of came almost from opposite directions, right? For me, it was the math and the data that started it, and then the technology and the engineering pieces came, as a consequence of that. And for you, you sort of came into it the other way around. It's like you started in the engineering, like, oh, I really have this passion for data. And how cool is it that you got excited about a data migration project that spurred this all off? Like, you can't fake love like that. If you're going to love a data
Absolutely.
migration project, you do love data. Like, well done. But I think
Absolutely.
I do think it speaks to the variety of skills that are needed to make this job work. And it's almost like the more you can grab, the more types of skills you can put into your toolbox, so to speak, the more successful you can
Absolutely.
become. Have you experienced that as well?
Absolutely. So I think, I mean, data science it's a very domain agnostic discipline. To
Hmm.
be very honest, anybody can actually be a data scientist, and I literally mean that. Any person coming from any background previously, can be a data scientist, but it needs some work,
Yeah,
definitely.
say more about that. Like, why do you feel, why is that an important concept for you, and why do you feel it's particularly relevant for data science? I kind of agree, but I'm curious about your, what's behind that statement for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you look at the use cases, you actually need to think out of the box. Okay, definitely, you need to have the technical skills. That is something all of us, we have to pick it up.
Sure.
So in that case, probably, if you're coming from engineering background, you have some advantage. Like, if I talk about, because, you're used to programming, you're used to, kind of designing flows and all that.
Yeah.
But those skills are not difficult to pick up. I mean, especially nowadays with the amount of, free courses, excellent, like free courses which are like really of great quality. So
Yeah.
everything, it is totally, at our fingertips, and anybody who wants to go and really has the passion to go for it has all the resources available, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But you to solve a data science use case, it's very different from it's you cannot equate a data science problem with a software engineering problem. Okay, that's the first thing. I know many people, they tend to do that. They think that they're kind of overlapping and they're the same thing, but they are definitely not the same thing. So in my experience, I have worked with people, coming from different backgrounds, people coming from, say, economists, physicists,
Mhm.
chemists, all of who transitioned into the role of a data scientist. So the use cases on which I worked upon, I definitely feel their inputs were vital. Their inputs, they kind of, totally, they were like pivotal as far as the success of the, use case was concerned, because many a times you just end up writing a bunch of code and the output means nothing. The
Mhm.
stakeholders, they cannot make any sense of it.
Mhm.
Nobody understands what is the larger problem we are trying to solve. So definitely, in that case, I think anybody can become a data scientist.
Yeah, I think.
However,
Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry. No, no, no. I think I was just going to end that statement saying that I think the skill which is an absolute must for any person who wants to be a good data scientist is communication. I think communication is the key.
Yeah, there's a.
So,
Oh,
yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Yeah, that
no,
I
no. I
was going to
think
end
I
on it,
think
but
you're right.
yeah,
I think it's almost hard to overstate the value of communication in many roles. Like it does kind of, it does end up at the top of the pyramid, I think, in a business context, for people generally, as a skill that if you have it, it's a very important meta skill in a lot of ways too. If you have it, you are going to be very likely going to create value, particularly if you can mix it with some, some specialist and subject matter expertise as you describe. And I think your other point around, uh, the kind of, I don't know if you said it this way, but what I took from it was needing to see a problem holistically. And really, to be successful at data science, you're not like domain bound in the sense of like, this is the kind of problem that I solve, this is the way I solve it, and if it fits on that assembly line, then I will help you, and if not, I won't. You sort of don't have that luxury. Or if you're, depending on how you look at it, like, you don't have to be constrained in that way. And I would agree that the successful scientists and data scientist folks that I see, whatever background they come from, they share that passion for like, what's the real problem here that needs to be solved. They like to kind of back up to that at first.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, let's talk about your current role a little bit. You're at BNY Mellon, and you're part of the AI Hub, and you've got this focus there on metrics and analytics. It sounds like. Um, can you just tell us more about the role and what it's like doing AI and data science in a big bank like that? And I think our listeners would be really curious to hear, about that job in these ways.
Yeah. So BNY Mellon is the world's largest custodian bank, and it is 240 years old. So this is we are celebrating our 240th year, which is
Wow.
something I definitely want to share with the listeners, because that is not something you will hear. It's not a very common thing, you'll hear about
I
other
mean, that's
companies.
only like a few years younger than the United States of America, right? That's pretty
Actually,
impressive.
that's pretty impressive. Exactly. So it is a big bank, but it's a traditional bank. So, AI Hub is a team of AI professionals. And this whole team was set up with the idea of transforming the bank. It was
Hmm.
set up with the idea of kind of giving, totally a new definition to the bank's role in leveraging the AI/ML systems. And our team has like professionals, all kinds of professionals. So it's not just the data scientists, but we have data engineers, we have subject matter experts, product leads, governance people, and we also have tie-ups with a lot of universities. So we are constantly learning and trying to keep ourselves updated with you know the explosive pace in which this field is growing.
Hmm.
And so it's a team of professionals coming, having diverse skills. My role, so currently I'm a senior data scientist. I mostly work with different line of businesses. So because our AI Hub is kind of it's a generic team, it's not tied to a particular line of business. But typically for a bank, we have like different, when I say line of businesses, I mean different wings, like investment management or markets, or the legal team, everything. It covers a wide range of teams.
Hmm.
So I primarily work with the different line of businesses. And we have, so usually we have subject matter experts who will identify the pain points and where AIML can contribute most effectively in creating a big impact for the bank. So
Hmm.
typically we have those use cases defined in the very beginning of maybe the beginning of the financial year, or I don't know, maybe in mid-year, whenever we are making that plan. And together with the SMEs and product leads, we interact with all the line of businesses. We try to understand their pain points. We start with data, gathering the data, and many a times it's absolutely important to educate the stakeholders, like what value or what benefit uh, whatever use case we are working on is going to bring to their wing.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is a significant level of skepticism involved, that
Yeah.
it's going to because there is real money involved, right? So it's
Sure.
different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all those things, so that's why I say that communication is vital, especially if you're working for such a big traditional bank,
Yeah.
where you have like real people who have worked like sitting behind the trading desk for like 2 decades, who can
Yeah.
just shut me down in a second if I try to explain something. If I try to explain then how a particular model can improve the prediction, whatever they're doing based on their SME knowledge. So all those things, it's very
Yeah.
interesting. So it's a new initiative. There are a lot of challenges. It's highly dynamic. It's
Yeah.
extremely volatile, but there's a lot of learning involved. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Like I had a similar experience, working, particularly at Nike, which was very much like trying to
Okay.
and succeeding in bringing data science into its ecosystem or into its, its world. But similar, interactions at times, and it's almost like a Moneyball problem that
Oh,
you're after there, where it's like you got people that have been doing work successfully for a long time, and if you like you can it can definitely it's definitely possible that that gets set up as a conflict oriented dynamic
yeah.
with
Very true.
new mathematical ways to solve problems or to augment solutions to problems. um, I think that's an important problem that data scientists often encounter. What do you have, ways or examples or thoughts about, good ways to resolve those problems? Like, what do you do when you feel like you might be in a situation like that, or how do you avoid ending up in a situation like that?
Yeah, so it's difficult to avoid ending up in a situation like that, but most of the time, so normally what my I personally prefer to, keep them in the communication loop all the time. So for example, we have I come up with the first iteration of the model, whatever we are thinking, just a baseline model, and I share the results with them. So typically, we'll always ask for their feedback. Like, what do you think about it? Is it good? How good or bad it is? So that way, slowly, it kind of gives them confidence also, because we always tell them that there is no like one size fits all solution. We are going to continuously, we'll keep on iterating on it, and we'll only put it in production whenever you are comfortable with the numbers. And we have an established process where we like every day, we kind of send them reports. For example, if there's a model which generates some kind of prediction every single day, then typically those reports will be shared with them in a very readable format, and probably put them in a nice dashboard so that they don't have to wander around a lot. They can just quickly go, just eyeball them, and kind of get an idea about how good or bad the model is performing. But however, having said that, this is not enough, because as I said, you're interacting with people from different backgrounds. They have their own temperament, and especially in a big traditional bank, sometimes they lose it. Some people are very friendly, they are ready to work with you, but it's not the same for others, so you
Yeah.
just have to suck it up sometimes.
Well, and the
So
the mantra of
yeah,
communication, communication, communication is a pretty good one to start with,
absolutely.
and I think it's the other paradigm people often talk about is, building helpers for the people rather than building replacements for the people, can really
Absolutely.
help too. You mentioned, I think, and if I misheard you, I apologize, but I thought you mentioned some academic collaborations at BNY Mellon. Is that right?
Yeah,
How do you guys
that's right.
structure that? That's like people do that really differently. I'm curious about how at BNY
Right.
you run that.
Yeah, so we have collaborations with NYU and CMU, all these
Sure.
major universities which are in this region. So typically, we hire interns from these universities. So they'll come and they'll work on some use cases in which we feel that we need their inputs. Apart from that, our team, there is also an active push for publishing papers in
Hmm.
major conferences. And when obviously not everybody is a researcher here, so some amount of help is definitely needed. If you what you want to write, but just to put it in a proper format and everything, you kind of collaborate. So that is where the university collaboration is like really, it's very useful.
Cool.
And then there's a lot of things going on in the academic field also, right? So sometimes they are sharing all those updates with us, and we also try to see if we can leverage that and use it in the current solutions. However, I think I just have, as far as my experience goes, I feel industry and academics, there is still a long way to go.
Yeah.
There is a long gap,
Yeah. I would agree.
so before it can be bridged. Yes, we are working towards it, but still there is a gap, definitely, in the way researchers think and in the way a typical corporate company works. So
Yeah, no, I would say that's 100% true. Some version of that is healthy because you want the institutions are aimed at different things and you want that diversity of approach.
absolutely.
But then some of
Absolutely.
it is like the gulf is really, really broad. And I think we saw a lot of this in earlier foundation model research, well, I guess I should say in general NLP research for a long time,
Mm.
the benchmarks, I think this has changed a bit now, with foundation models, but the benchmarks for quality of models and things like that were like the academic benchmarks were kind of very narrow, and didn't always help
Yeah,
you use any of these systems in like a real
true,
world capacity.
true, true, true. And many a times, if you're reporting on like 10 different metrics, I mean, the stakeholders, they cannot even make
Right,
any sense of it. What does it mean? What am I
right,
getting out of it? So
right.
you really have to simplify it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
So
I think you
yeah,
have to have the right measures too. You have to make sure that your measures are true to the real
yeah,
problem in
yeah,
real life, and that's not always the
yeah.
same as the abstract
True,
problems. But yeah,
true.
you also, on the other side, right? You can't overwhelm people with information. They may not know what
No.
precision and recall mean, or
I
it,
know.
yeah, like how do
For
you
me also,
tell
it
that
took me
story?
some time to like, understand what
Yeah.
precision recall is. I used to get confused all the time when
Well,
I was
that's
initially
Yeah, it's a
learning those
funny
things.
one.
Yeah.
It's a funny one because it comes out of the old information retrieval worlds, and like
Yeah.
the nomenclature makes sense there, but it doesn't make sense the same kind of intuitive way with other applications. But
True.
anyway, we could go down
True.
this road forever. But I wanted to not forget to ask you this question. So we care about customer engagement a lot at LivePerson, right? That's our business, is to help brands engage their customers better and to use AI to do it. How do you see customer engagement changing because of or due to AI and data science in the financial sector? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, definitely. Customer engagement, there's a huge potential, as far as finance is concerned. Although I would I would like to state something here that finance is a different world, if you compare to other industries, because there are a lot of guardrails in place.
Yeah,
A lot of governance is also in place. So
yeah.
you just cannot go and just
You guys have a
come
bit of
up
a
with a
healthcare
model.
problem there, right? You have kind of a similar
Exactly.
problem to them. Yeah,
Yes, you're right. You're right. It's kind of, it's very similar to the healthcare also has the same issues.
yeah,
However, definitely, now there a path is being formed now. So not everything is like, instantly put into production. And we are continuously in the mode of constant proof of concept iterations.
mm,
That is something which is kind of a easier way to deal with it. So definitely, as far as finance is concerned, I think some of the high level use cases in which AIML can greatly, AIML can have a huge impact in the finance world is tackling customer attrition. Okay.
yeah,
So, customer attrition is a huge problem.
yeah.
I think for all the banks, especially for a custodian bank, because it means, if losing an account means you're actually losing a lot of money. Okay. And because it's hard to acquire customers also. So, yes, that is one part. Secondly, in fraud detection, which is like one of the
Yeah,
burning issues,
yeah.
and it's such a and the whole landscape of fraud, it's constantly evolving. So every single day you'll see something new. So technically, you cannot even run a model for probably a month. It'll fail to catch some of the cases. So that is how difficult the problem is.
That's
But
fun.
definitely, if you're trying, different, if you're trying different approaches, and you kind of take the best of everything and try to come up with a try to summarize the outcome of all, what 10 different approaches is telling you, it is definitely working. In my experience, it is working as far as fraud detection is concerned.
Yeah.
Then
Do you see in either of those areas or any other areas you want to talk about, do you see major changes coming with the large language models or foundation models in general? Like how does that kind of feather in for you into some of these disciplines?
yes, so as far as fraud is concerned, see, large language models, it's a game changer. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like a so I don't know. I mean, technically, it is under the realm of AIML, but it has become a, big elephant in its own. That's it. That's how it is turning out to be. So definitely, uh, large language models. So I am working on few use cases where we are trying to find some patterns. I will not like to get into the details, but yes, definitely
Mm,
it's being used extensively
yeah.
right now. And there's an active push actually to find out use cases which where we can use the LLMs more effectively. So definitely, I think it's not just finance, but it is going to be used everywhere. So yeah, definitely for finance. I'm not sure. I don't have an experience of using LLMs for fraud detection. I mean, personally, I don't have an experience, but I'm sure there are a lot of teams working on it, and I'm 100% sure that as far as identifying fraudulent patterns is concerned, large language models can definitely contribute in that.
Makes sense. I mean,
And
they are big sequence readers and writers in the end of
yeah,
the day
yeah,
of multivariate
yeah,
inputs and
yeah.
outputs. So there you
Because
go.
many a times, like for fraudulent transactions, you just have some free text field where they're just going to scribble something,
Yep.
and there are actually patterns. Maybe people are scribbling at a haste, the fraudsters, whoever is trying to
Yeah.
push that transaction through,
Yeah.
but you won't believe it, there are still patterns, okay? So which
Interesting.
you won't be able to catch everything, but there are patterns typical to a particular client which keeps coming over again and again. So definitely we have been doing it programmatically all this while. Now with large language models, I'm sure
Yeah.
that process
No,
is
I
going to get simplified.
I still think there's just a whole swath of applications. Like the chat application is so interesting to everyone because we do it with each other. We're programmed to do it, so to
Right,
speak. But then the
right.
models as more general understanders or utilities around other kinds of sequences, I feel like is one of these areas that's like just going to open up soon, as the extent to which we can get the right data. And DNA is another example that like I think is really interesting
Absolutely,
potentially.
absolutely, extremely,
Okay.
extremely true.
All right. We should get close to. We're kind of running short on time here. Um, so I guess what I'd love to do now is transition over to our new segment for this season, which is hype it or hate it. Uh, Ranjita, are you ready for hype it or hate it? Do you know what you're getting into here?
Yes,
Good.
yeah,
All right. So for our listeners, each of us is going to have 60 seconds, and we will pick either a hype or a hate, and we will sort of go off on our hype or hate for the 60 seconds, and then the other will have a chance to respond to that hype or hate.
great.
And we've got Britt on the line to keep us honest about the time.
Excellent. Yes, I'm here to be the warden on time. And I've got my document pulled up here to get all of this going. Okay. So, Joe, you already know the deal on this. Excuse me, everyone. You already know the deal here. I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. There's going to be a little buzzer that will go off. In between, I'm going to alert you at 30 seconds, at 10 seconds, and then, of course, the buzzer is going to go off. Do either of you have any questions before we start?
No.
No.
All right, let's get to it. All right, Joe, your time starts now.
Okay. Since we're on this subject, Ranjita, with that's a little bit academic, I'm going to go academic today. I have a hate. It's a hate and a hype. So I love the empiricism in the literature, in the academic literature today. I love how people are investigating these new models. I love how much we're learning about how these model architectures behave. I think all that's great, but I think we're missing a key component to the academic literature today, which is more about the foundational mathematics
30
and
seconds.
understanding what. Did I have 30? Is that right? Understanding what is really going on in terms of the math, the linear algebra, the Hilbert spaces, all the functional mathematics behind these big models. I don't think we have a good theory of them, and I don't think there's, even worse than that, I don't think there's a good
10
mechanism to
seconds.
publish papers about that. And so the whole system has kind of lost an ability for us to learn more and to grow in terms of our fundamental understanding of the mathematics of these systems. And I think that's to our detriment.
Time is up, Joe. Well
Great.
done. That's
Well
right
done.
in time. Ranjita, do you want to weigh in on what Joe had to say today?
Great. I don't believe that he was not prepared. I mean, it just came out instantly. Great.
What do you think? Do you think I'm off
Ranting is more
base?
fun, right?
Yeah. No,
No,
this is
no.
totally
I
fun.
think
Do you think
ranting is more fun, right?
I
It's
don't know
always
when we'll ever get a hype here. It seems like everyone's all hate. But what do you think?
Everyone
Do
is
you
speaking
agree
of
or
rant.
disagree with the tenant there? Do you think
I agree.
yeah?
I totally agree. Absolutely.
Well, that
All
makes
right, perfect. Ranjita, you are
Yeah.
up next.
Yeah.
Same rules apply. I'm going to set the clock for 60 seconds. I'll notify you at 30 and then again at 10. You'll either hear the buzzer or you'll hear me just say time's up.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, here you go. Your hype it or hate it starts now.
Okay, so today I'm going to rant about the elephant in the room, which is the large language models, the Swiss Army knives of the digital age. But let's talk about, so for large language models with great power comes great responsibility. But are we really using it right? There are ethical concerns. Massive data guzzlers. The carbon footprint is through the roof. Okay, the environmental impact of training these behemoths is just unimaginable.
30 seconds.
All the copyrighted data it is guzzling, the privacy concerns are just gone, nobody knows. The ethical issues, and how can we forget about the hallucinations? You ask the model something, the model confidently responds something totally different. And every single day a new LLM is releasing. We don't know
10
what's going to
seconds.
happen to the jobs. And I'm really very scared. I'm extremely concerned about my own job also. And yeah, sometimes I just keep asking this question myself, did I really need it? Okay.
Time's up. Well done. All right, Joe, weigh in. What do you think about what excuse me, what Ranjeeta had to say?
I think you're bringing up really good points. I think to me, there's a kind of like there's kind of an Uber effect here going on where it's like Uber wasn't really legal from a regulations and taxi perspective. And then it just got to be such a big thing that it stopped mattering that it wasn't really legal. And I feel like we're in kind of the same boat with LLMs in some way. And not that they should be illegal. I don't mean anything like that, but there are these issues.
Yeah.
But the utility is so strong that it kind of stopped mattering to everybody. And I wouldn't mean to say we should slow down or stop development or something like that, but I think it's another piece to this puzzle of like, are we studying all the right things? Is there enough room in the world and in the academics and in the institutions that we have to make sure that we're investigating all the problems that need to be investigated around these models, whether it's foundational mathematics, whether it's the ethics and the bias, which I think is getting some press but could use more, or whether it's the models themselves. So yeah, I think great point. I guess that brings us to the end of our session for today. Ranjeeta, it was a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
All right. And thank you all out there for tuning in to Generation AI. We'll see you next time, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are and whatever you're doing.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.